Down south, there's like churches on every corner, so there's not a place where you won't see a church. And so that's what I grew up in. But it wasn't until after that when I actually moved to Louisiana was when my faith started to grow. I started going to church every Sunday. Like it was not a Sunday where I was not going to church, because then I was dancing too, and that's where I started. But I would say, right now where I stand in the present moment, I don't like to consider myself like a religious person. Being religious, sometimes people kind of take the word religion and, kind of misconstrue it. And I feel like God, he's a loving God, he's a forgiving God, and he knows us better than anybody. And I feel like as long as we have a good heart and a good relationship with him and we just make time for him, that's where I'm at. Like, I'm a very spiritual person. I feel like I'm making time for God. And I know if I don't pray a day or if I don't read one of my devotions for the day, my day is all messed up. So I'm just very big on like my spirit, just being spiritual and one with God.
So I guess I could start a little bit with my parents. So my dad is Bengali. He came to America from Bangladesh in the 1980s, where he met my mom, who's Italian American. She's from Coney Island, Brooklyn. Mom was raised Catholic, but not very religious, not entirely religious. And same thing with my dad, raised Muslim, but not entirely religious. So they met, they got married. My mom converted, and she basically wanted us to like grow up with one religion. She didn't want us to be. She basically felt like it would be very confusing for us, like growing up, if we were to like grow up in a household with two religions. And it didn't really matter to her what religion she was following. So that's why she decided to convert.
Faith played a major role in my upbringing as a young child. We would go to church every Saturday evening. My mom's aunt, who's my great aunt, was a sister of St. Joseph in OLPH. So we would travel 10 minutes to go to Mass every Saturday night with her. We would hang out. Afterwards, we'd go out to eat. And it was always a very bright memory. And growing up, I always remember just going to church. I still have the little fire truck I would have just to kind of keep my mind off it. It still stays on top of my bed. But as we grow up, it was just really nice to have a sense of community. Mass really played a whole lot after my father left when I was about 5 or 6. So we would go to OLPH, and then we switched over to St. Anselm's, where I went to school as a kid. I played in the choir, I sang in the choir with my twin sister. We did that for a long time, up until I was about 11 or 12. And then my mom started dating her husband now, my stepdad, and he came from St. Ephraim's. So we were kind of like, we just went from church to church to church throughout our time. It was like a family thing. We would go with my grandparents, my aunt, and us. And that was just kind of the thing we did. It wasn't like, we never dreaded going to church. We were never like super excited to go to church. It just kind of happened.
In like a non-denominational church, I feel like you really get into the spirit. Like I really feel the spirit with the music and the clapping and the fun, and then I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it, because that's the type of environment I feel like, God is like, when you have people celebrating God together with music and dance and all of this stuff, it's just, God, I feel like he wants us to live our life and have fun. So that's the setting like I'm used to and accustomed to, and that's the setting that I love. Yes. I go to church because, I want to go to church. I feel like, and I may not go every Sunday, but I feel like, again, with my relationship with God, as long as I have that relationship and I make time for him, that's my spiritual journey. He knows my heart, and I'm making time for him. But for me, church, I feel like it's important, especially when you just want to, have that spiritual, like that real, you know what I mean? When you go to church and you're just in the spirit. with all these people that are also in the spirit, and then and then the pastor says something, and then everybody's like, wow. You know what I mean? You go to church and the pastor gives you a message and you're like, I was going through that last week. How did you even know? Like, that's an amazing feeling. I'm not just going to church because my parents are telling me so. I'm going to church because I want to go to church, and I know it's important to grow spiritually.
So I grew up with certain values, like charity was a big thing in my house. So that was just like humanitarianism was very, very big in like when I was growing up, just helping people. My dad was especially very big on that. Bangladesh is a very, very poor country. So a lot of my life, I've seen him send money back, like for a bunch of like different philanthropic reasons, to just help out his community that he came from. I specifically have a memory of going to the mosque for the first time. It was on Eid, which is a holiday. It's like a holiday right after Ramadan, basically to commemorate the ending of Ramadan. And that was my first time in a mosque, and it was cool. I was so excited, and I was like 4 years old. I don't know why my dad waited so long to take me. Possibly because he just knew that, like, you know, I might run amok, in such a free, like, a open place. So I remember that, and as I got a little older, I used to go to, basically we do this like the Sunday school kind of thing on the weekends, where you learn Arabic, you learn to read and write Arabic, not necessarily speak it. It's just so that you have a good understanding of how to read the Quran and like its original language. So at that point, I wasn't very interested in religion. I was about to be a teenager, essentially. So I'm just like, yeah, I'm not very interested in this. So I guess flash forward to about a couple of years later, where I felt like I hadn't gained anything from like going to Saturday school or Sunday school, whatever you want to call it. I very much regretted it afterward, because there was so much I could have learned and I didn't. I chose not to. But then I really just started to, I guess, keen in on my own faith, on my own. Google a lot was my best friend, just learning about my faith. And it was, I don't know why I didn't ask my parents. It was just something that I had to discover on my own. Being Muslim here in the United States is very politicized, right? Being very young and having to decide that, making that move on saying like, this is who I am and like I'm gonna go forth with it is like a big thing. Like it's important, and it was like a moment, I guess, for me.
Coming to college, there was a span of time where, like I said, you just get tired. You don't go to Mass every weekend, it kind of just falls off, but it's still in the back of your mind. You feel guilty. We became Christmas Catholics for a little bit just because everything was out of order and you make excuses. But when I got here, Dr. Egler really enlightened us. Our first semester coming to school, we didn't really know anyone, didn't know what to do during our activity periods, and we saw there was Mass. We're like, oh, we'll go to Mass. And you get introduced to people there, and it was something nice. And then going on the pilgrimage and getting more involved in campus ministry here in the college, it's really made me, as a growing adult, take a better appreciation for it and make it my own, not more of my family's. My faith has grown tremendously here at St. Francis College because I've taken the aspect of Franciscanism and really learned it, ate it up, and tried to adopt it into my life as best as I can. Being a Catholic, I went to Catholic school for a long time. Then when I went to public school, you do the CCD. So you sit there and you learn all the stories, you take everything, but it's kind of just forced at you. So you get all the ideas, you get all the morals. You're like, oh, I'm Catholic, and that's good. You go to Mass, you go to weddings and funerals. You'll get the big picture of what goes on. But as a kid, you don't really take an understanding of it. But going here and seeing the mission and action seeing what it means to be Catholic and hearing about going on the pilgrimage and learning about St. Francis and kind of understanding where he comes from, how it's okay to be misguided in the beginning. You make mistakes. You can be a normal person but still lead a very good and rich life. That's helped me grow as a person, and I feel like a better person learning about him, and I try to emulate him because of his life and how everything, it's relatable. It's a relatable story St. Francis has. And I see myself in there every time I mess up or there's something. I'm like, he had some trips along the way, but look where he is now. Look at the building. He has a college named after him. He has a whole, that's minuscule, but he has his whole following. Everything it is to be Franciscan really kind of shows, and I've really taken that as growing my faith even more. When you have the story of the leper and there was people that turned their back on you because of who you are, it doesn't matter who they are, you need to love them. And even if they bother you or they're annoying or if there's a problem, or if like a leper you don't want to associate with them, you still should love them for who they are. And I've taken that as an example of my family, what my sister went through, what my mother went through. And we were just kind of our core three. And then to see other people be so welcoming and so exciting, and just to see how Francis did it. And he went through a very similar thing, just going through his life, how his family turned their back on him. And he still had the ability to love. So, I mean, why shouldn't I, you know?
I know this was probably like a cliche verse, but Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Like, I'm getting chills. Oh my God, I'm getting chills. Like that verse, like the words are so simple, but that verse is so powerful because you literally cannot do things without, knowing who God is. And there are some people in this world that don't know God. And it just is mind-blowing because I get chills when I say, like, God is real. Like, God is so powerful, and he literally has brought me through the toughest of times. And it's like, I just want to tell the world, like, God is good. And this verse, for me, is just, every day. I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. Like, there's nothing I can't do without him, by my side. When I'm going through it, people think that prayer needs to be structured. I don't feel like prayer needs to be structured. I feel like, prayer is a conversation with God. Like, you just need to tell him how you feel. And I'm a big, firm believer on, if you ask, it shall be given. But before, you get it, of course, God is going to put you through different trials and tribulations. So it's important to ask during the prayer, like, okay, God, what is it? What do you want me to do here?
A verse that really resonates with me is, your Lord has not forgotten you, nor does he detest you. So essentially, your Lord hasn't forgotten you and he doesn't hate you. And the story behind the verse is that the Prophet Muhammad, who received the revelation of the Quran, was receiving revelation and suddenly it just stopped. So imagine God is talking to you and it's just like silent mode. For months, like the narrations say for months, and some of the narrations say that he thought that he had done something wrong, that he went to the highest mountain and thought about jumping off, and then suddenly these verses came down, including the one that I just stated. So it just I don't know, it resonates with me a lot because sometimes I do feel disconnected, and then I just have to remember that someone, whatever you want to call this transcendence, is looking out for me.
There's one that kind of sticks out. It's something I have on a shirt. I repeats in my head. I had it in my Instagram bio for a long time. And it's a very popular one. It's mostly associated with the military, and it's John 15:13. Greater love hath no man than to give his life for a brother. And it's talking about sacrifice and giving your life for that others may live, for things like that. And I take it in a sense of, you have to not physically sacrifice yourself. You don't have to put yourself in the line of fire physically, but if you give of yourself, if you sacrifice yourself to make someone's life better, there is no greater love. So that's one thing that always comes into my head, thinking about that. No matter if it's physical or if it's just helping someone out you don't want to, or it's just a tough situation. There's no greater love than sacrificing yourself to help someone else, no matter what it is. So going to Mass as a kid we're all going to Mass, so let's go. And then when we got a little older, it was kind of, you feel a little guilty. If you haven't gone, you're like, oh, I didn't go last week, I should go this week. Or if you haven't gone at all, oh, it's Christmas, you have to go. Easter, you have to go, all these things. But now I go for a sense of peace. I go for a sense of like renewal. You want to hear, like if you're having something wrong or you're having a bad week, you go to Mass, and no matter if you hear a story that relates to you or not, but I'll be sitting next to my sister and I'll tap her with my elbow, I'll like kick her with my leg, and I'll be like, you hear what I'm saying? Hear what he's saying? It's what happened to us this week. And it's just very reassuring. You feel very at home when you're in church. So I feel like trying to get a renewal, just a sense of peace. And I feel like now that's my main reason to go.
Being in college, like I said, you're always being thrown so many different things to just test your faith. And if anything, I think that college has really it's been a big test for me and just my spirituality. Because, I do fall short. I'm not perfect, nobody is. But yeah, like college has really tested my, my spiritual journey. But I always reach a point where I'm like, oh my God, I need to get it together. I need to pray and I need to get it together. So if anything, I do fall short. College has been not easy, but of course I know that's because that's life. And I'm going through this thing called life, but I'm not going through it by myself.
Muslims are required to pray 5 times a day. It's a struggle for me. I'll be honest, but I do engage in the prayer every day. Like I said, it is a struggle to complete all of them, but I try my very best to do that. Additionally, there's a concept in Islam that every action that you're doing with the right intention is worship in and of itself. So every day I show up here to school, right? I interact with people in the best way that I know how, and that right there is like worship, a form of worship and like praise. Also learning and just conducting myself in the best way that I can. And as far as I guess ritual, I will say it's extremely hard to keep up with every form of ritual as a student, but I try my best.
In this day and age, you feel a little awkward talking about your faith. But after going on the pilgrimage, I felt more open and inclined to speak about it, and not be embarrassed, but it's just not awkward. You're able to open up, and I found that more with people of my own faith and people of other faiths, and they express their side, I express my side, and you all end up getting a better understanding. So I feel like I've grown in that sense with it, and with that you have a connection because you're in a space where everyone respects where you come from, who you are, what it is. So I feel the support, and it's more of me just having to find it and reach out, but it's there and it's very strong. And it's something I hope I can be for other students.
God is my everything. He is my strength when I'm weak, because there's a song by I think Matthew West, and I hope I'm not butchering this. And he has a song called Strong Enough, and the lyrics are, I know I'm not strong enough to be anything that I'm supposed to be strong enough. I'm not strong enough. And every time I listen to that song, I get chills because I listen to that song when I'm going through it. And I have to remind myself, like, God is my crutch. Clearly I'm not, strong enough to do this with this world that we live in today. But I feel like with him being my everything, like, it's already done. Like, whatever I'm dealing with, it's already under control. And I have to remind myself with that song. Yeah. So he's everything. He's everything.
I think that the fact that I grew up with parents who both have very different religious experiences and backgrounds, even though they're both Muslim now, has been like such a blessing for me to be able to understand not only like what I identify as, but like, but what is like a good chunk of people, in the West. These institutions have a function, like, right, for society, like they're there for a reason. Like, they're there for us to take away things, and to just leave things there that we don't know necessarily where else to put them.
Who is God to me? I think it's my beginning and end in a sense, but it's just more of like a spirit, like a guidance, just leading me into the right direction. And I always put if there's ever something goes wrong or something goes right, I always say, God put me here for a reason. There's no good lessons or bad. There's only good in life, I say. If there's bad, it's a good lesson, no matter what it is. So I always feel that he's just kind of leading me and teaching me to do the right thing and end up where I'm supposed to be. Just with a lot of problems we've had in my family, through relationships with extended family, issues, concerns, whatever, the church was always there. And whenever you went, it always felt like God was speaking to you no matter what issue you had. You can pick something out of a reading, out of the gospel, out of the homily, what the Father said, and you're like, wow, he's speaking to me.